Yes. Welcome and come well to another episode of 1 plus 1 equals 1. I am your host, amiasblu. Am I as I am, as you are. Today's episode touch upon something a little interesting. Before I get into that, it's going to be a quick, short episode. Get straight to the point. Before I get into that, let me just let you know I'm going to promote my book at the moment. I have a book coming out entitled 1 plus 1 equals 1, which are why these episodes at the very bottom of these videos, you see 1 plus 1 equals 1 with the title next to it upon whatever subject I'm going to build upon at the moment. It's a book coming out based on the metaphysical understanding and the occult, OCCULT, occult understanding of what is this thing we call relationship? What is this thing we call partnership, or my partner, or my companion, or my significant other? What are these things? And what happens in the midst of these experiences that we have amongst these interactions and interfacing with these individuals? And it's catered to those who are in a marriage, who are in relationships, engagements, just basically interfacing and interacting with each other, trying to see what is there, what is this about, ultimately. And it's coming out, the book, well, I would call it a manual because it's more of a manual. The manual will be out, I guess you can say sometime between mid-fall to early winter. Around fall, let's just say fall, somewhere in between fall and fall, which is the autumn equinox. It'll be appearing sometime within that space and time, and I will inform you ahead of time as well when it is coming out. Anyway, let's bounce to and jump to today's topic at hand. Basically, this video right here will be entitled at the bottom of this video, 1 plus 1 equals 1. What is emotional imprisonment? So what is emotional imprisonment? How does it get created? Who creates it? How does it happen? How does it appear? What happens? Well, I've conversated and had short conversations with people who are in relationships today, which is kind of consistent. Kind of bump into these individuals like that. And we're building on certain topics. And I told them I'll touch upon something today, which is in relation to the topics of our conversation, which we held earlier today. So let's jump right into it. As you know the procedure, we do it line for line, which is what I call doorway for doorway. And let's take a walk down this hallway together, shall we? Okay, let's jump into it. The first line is, or the first doorway is, first doorway is, if you choose to visualize and envision things that are not being shown to you or witnessed by you. This is in understanding when you're in a relationship and you're dealing with your mates, and you may have certain issues with your jealousy, your insecurity, and your idiosyncrasies within your mind. And these are things that happen within the mind of that individual who has these jealousies, insecurities, and idiosyncrasies, which they have not addressed and confronted and neutralized within their self. This is what occurs in that mind. Okay, so let's rewind again. The first line is, the first doorway is, if you choose to visualize and envision things that are not being shown to you or witnessed by you, you turn your mind into your own emotional imprisonment and torture chamber, your own personalized haunted house, designed by you, the designer. So in other words, you turn your own given tools, your own divine inherited given tools of willpower and imagination against you, against yourself, which in other words is it against itself. because it can only be utilized and used by you, the user and the creator of your creation. And basically, willpower and imagination, once you understand what willpower is, or the will, or willing to, or the willingness of one's being, and the imagination which it composes, these two things are your self-liberation and your personal freedoms that you possess and that you have unlimited access to within yourself, whenever desired and or required by you. When you turn yourself against itself, then who else does the self have at its disposal to turn for self-liberation, for its own freedom, for its own centeredness or centering, or for its own sanity? And this is a question I'm asking. I'm drinking a cranberry juice. Once the self turns against itself, what other self is in existence that it has to turn to center itself, when all it has is itself to begin with and all itself to an end with? It may sound like a question, but it's also a kind of riddle as well, if you want to take it in that light. So when we visualize things, we envision, oh, who is she with? Who is he with? He's probably with her. What is he doing? What is she doing? I wonder what she's doing. Who is she talking to? Who is he talking to? And you start going into this whole brain fog, this whole mind mist, and you get lost in that fog and that mist. You can no longer find your way out of that maze which you have created, the maze of mind. Why do you think your brain, if you look at your brain, why do you think it has these lines and squiggly lines and these imprints and these infolds and these patterns and certain line patterns that it has within it? Where do you think the idea of a maze came from? You get lost within your own brain, not within your mind, because your mind is a free thing. Your brain is an entrapped thing. It's entrapped inside of a skull, which is covered by skin, which is also covered by an auric field or an energy field or an electromagnetic field that imprisons it or keeps it a captured thing within a captured vehicle in an experience that lost focus of its own true existence beyond this vehicle, beyond this flesh that doesn't even exist, this skin suit, this flesh vehicle, this flesh costume. So, when you visualize and envision things, these things are not even being shown to you. So what are you doing visualizing and envisioning it? She may just be going to the store. He may just be at the laundromat cleaning clothes. You may say he's with her. And he may very well not even be with who you're thinking he's with. She's with this. I know she's with him. Well, she's probably doing this. She's probably doing that. And you're going crazy. You're going crazy. So you're beginning to turn a clear sky into something hazy. That's what crazy relates with, hazy. You create a haze through a clear atmosphere of air within yourself. But even if they are with this individual, what does that matter to you? Everybody's going to do what they want to do whenever they want to do it with whoever they want to do it with. If she tells you I was just here, understand it's just a story. If he tells you, hey, I was just over here, understand it's just a story. We choose which story or stories to believe to support our own sanity and our own emotional stability at certain points. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It may be a truth. It may actually be true. But you're not looking for what is true and what is not true. Don't get lost into that. Just appreciate the experience that you're having and stop driving yourself insane. Everything is just a story if you want to keep it real, if you want to live in reality. If you choose to believe it or not, it's on you. But know thyself. There's no reason for belief or believing. Just know. Know what? Know thyself. Be into thyself, interested in thyself, fully engulfed in yourself. Embrace yourself, swallow yourself. Just be yourself. Visualizing and envisioning what she may be doing, what he may be doing. You're clearing up, you're blocking up and clogging up a clear space, which is nothing but pure potential. And you're turning that potential into a possibility which is harmful to you. It's something to think about if you choose to. You're designing your own horror house. Imagination is a free thing. Willpower is a thing that is utilized at your choice, at your decision, whenever desired and or required to do so by you, the being and the mind, pushing this intent into a manifested reality. But what are you using it? How are you using it? Pardon me. How are you using it? How are you utilizing it? What are you doing with this beautiful mechanism that you have for free? You didn't buy willpower. You didn't buy imagination. You have this for free. These are two things that promote self-liberation and sanity of one's own being. How are you utilizing these two tools or these two devices that are actually for you? Are you keeping them in the category of being for you, or are you turning them against you? They are you, they are yours, they are at your command and demand. How are you utilizing these tools and devices? You can be very free of the nightmare which you choose to be in willingly. Your own nightmare. Right? But like I said, when you turn yourself against yourself, which is turning itself against itself, it's equivalent to that, then who else does the self have at its disposal to turn to for its own centering and sanity? What else does the self have? What other self does the self have to turn to for its own rescue, to rescue itself? Exactly. No one and nobody. And you're the creator which is creating it. When you hear this word creator, the creator, the creator did this, the creator did that, they're talking about you. You are the creator. You bring things into creation. There's nothing out there or somewhere over here. No, you are the creator. Don't you realize you create your own reality around you? Everywhere you go, everything you ever truly wanted, you got and came amongst or became or was acquainted with. It may not have came in a way that you may have recognized it, but it came. Whatever you wanted actually came in your lap. It came in your hand. You actually grasped it. You're creating your own reality. You don't even know it. You don't even recognize it. You don't even realize it. But we'll save that for another discussion. Let's jump into the next line or the next doorway because I can get real busy upon that subject. But let's stay in focus. Let's keep the tunnel vision going at the moment, okay? All right. The next line or the next doorway is you become toxic to your own nature and a poison to your own chemistry. Understand that what is medicinal can be also considered a poison, and what is poison can also be considered a medicinal. They have poisons out there from animals, insects, and creatures that they give off this poison or this venom. But in turn, this venom also can be a medicinal component within the body for self-healing as well. So if something is an extreme to the right, the more something is extreme to the right, the more it's going to have to make a left turn somewhere. So that extreme to the right also becomes a left thing as well, sooner or later. If it's acknowledged with the proper knowledge of one's uh, perception of it, that can actually change the chemical component and chemical structure of it to something which can be medicinal. This is why you become so mad that all of a sudden you have to become happy. Which is why you become so human, all of a sudden you have a spiritual enlightenment or spiritual experience for some reason. One extreme leads to the other extreme. The other extreme leads to the other extreme. You just have to find a point where it ends and when it can make that turn back into the opposite polarity of itself. Okay? I don't want to get too deep into that, but just understand that once again, you become toxic to your own nature and a poison to your own chemistry. This is what you're doing with your jealousy and your insecurity and your idiosyncrasies, that you're driving yourself insane with all these thoughts that you're planting in your mind that wasn't even there to begin with, but you plant that seed and now it grows into a tree with leaves and branches and goes through different seasonal patterns within your mental chemistry and it stays there. Okay? And basically, what you created is it becomes a perfected formula for self destruction by the creator which created it, you, until it reached a point of perfection. Once you understand what perfection is death. Perfection is death. It's all about perfecting. That ing at the end of a word is the biggest difference between an ion at the end of a word. Ing is in continuum. It's a constant thing. It's a consistent thing. There is no end to it, therefore there is no beginning to it. So you are in a constant state of perfecting, not perfection. Because when AIDS or cancer or any disease or sickness or illness or ailment perfects itself in your body and your mind, you are dead. This body is gone. Your life force leaves once something perfects itself in this body and this mind. So perfection is death, or a perfected thing is equivalent to a dead physical vehicle. You want to remain in the state of constant perfecting, not a perfected thing or something in perfection. It's a difference. Understand the difference. Okay? So basically, until it reaches a point of perfection, your own biology now begins to work against itself towards its own demise. Because that's how you programmed it to be. You. This body takes commands from you. And you being its own commander, which is in charge. So you are the commander in charge. How are you charging up this body? How are you keeping this in a state of charge or a charged up thing? What are you charging it with? What outlet in reality are you plugging it into to keep it charged? And how are you commanding it? How are you navigating it? How are you directing this mind and this heart and this body and this vehicle that you appear to be, but remain hidden in plain sight? Because you're not this to begin with. You're hidden in plain sight. The unseen force governs and sustains the seen force. Well, what do you mean by that? How does that make any sense? What do you mean? Can you elaborate on that? Sure. I'll give you a quick example, one small example. Can you see oxygen? No. Okay. Well, can you see yourself in the mirror? Yeah. All right. Well, how can something that's unseen keep what is seen present? And this is just one example out of many. I like to make things quick, simple. A quick, simple realization. You can elaborate and build on that and take that wherever you want to go on your own volition, on your own will. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just going to make one clear, quick example. Self-realization, recognition. Okay. The body is your own personal slave. Do you know that? Because once you understand the slave and master relationship, the master and slave relationship, this originated from the origins of understanding um, the relationships between body and mind and body. This is where you get your whole slave and master, master and slave kind of relationship going. This is not nothing human or physical. This is actually something metaphysical. It's a deep, hidden, occult understanding and wisdom. This body is your slave. You are the master. Your mind is the master. So when the mind becomes victimized to the body and the body's emotions and feelings due to the ill thoughts which it contains and creates through its imagination and willpower and its own intent and choice and decision on its own volition, the master becomes a slave to the slave itself. So my question to you, and my riddle to you, is what happens when the master becomes a slave to the slave itself? What happens is the master becomes a slave to the slave itself. So now it's a slave to the slave itself. So I ask you, where and when does the master appear? How will the master occur and appear? And you wonder why you become lost in yourself. But all hope is not gone. To be lost is also to become found. But how aware are you to find your way back to yourself? Only you know. Okay. The next line or doorway is, probably one or two more. The next line or doorway is, I understand what I'm touching upon is in relation to the book that's coming out or the manual that I'm putting out this fall. Keep in mind and keep in heart of that. KIMAH, keep in mind and heart, Kima. Okay, let's get to the next line, next doorway. You've turned your own sanctum of sanity into insanity or an insane asylum. You've turned your own private quarters into an open field of foreign intrusion and invasion by you. Why would you invade and intrude yourself, your own sanctum, your own sacred spot of existence and your experience? Why would you invade that shit? Why would you be that and then become foreign to that and invade that which you are? You're splitting yourself in two when you're actually one thing. You wonder why you have this back and forth shit with your mind and being confused and aggravated and going through anxiety. Do you really wonder why this happens? It's not rocket science. It's just simple shit I'm telling you. So in other words, it's like you becoming foreign to your own familiarity or to your own familiar. How does one become foreign to itself? This is a phenomenon within itself. You become the left brain hemisphere enemy to the right brain hemisphere, or the right brain hemisphere enemy to the left brain hemisphere. But what you're not paying attention to is the very thing in the middle, which sprouts the existence and the formation of these two things existing on these two different sides or two different opposite polarities of each other. And the middle thing is what you call the corpus callostrum. The corpus callostrum. Get to know what that thing is. And it's connected to your vagus nerve or your vagus nerve. But that's a whole nother conversation. What are the things in the middle? Biologically, energetically, etherically, spiritually. This is what you have to understand. Become the middle pillar and play on sides when you choose to. Don't become victim to one side, because then you take that to an extreme until you find yourself facing the opposite polarity somewhere in life, and it may be too late. Maybe, might be, possibly, probably. But why take that chance and that risk if you have awareness and you are enlightened and you are woke to a certain degree? What are you playing with that fire for? Drenched in gasoline. What's the point? So that self-inflicted pain and hurt becomes an addictive stimulation for self-activation, and in a way of understanding, a kind of self-validation. So this inflicted shit that you're doing on yourself, the self-inflicted pain and hurt that you're going through, which you're putting yourself through, you are putting yourself through it. Nobody's putting you through this but you. So this self-inflicted pain and hurt becomes an addictive stimulation. Now you're addicted to it. It stimulates you to some degree. We call it negative or positive, or wrong or right, bad or good. It's still a stimulation. It still catches your attention and holds your attention there. Attention is life. You're giving life to something. What are you giving life to? What are you birthing? So it becomes the self-inflicted. The key words are self-inflicted, self-infliction. The self-inflicted pain and hurt becomes an addictive stimulation for self-activation. And in a way of understanding, a kind of self-validation. It validates you. It validates the I am as the I am here. So once again, you're entrapping the soul within the body. You're entrapping an unseen force in a seen experience. You're entrapping existence within an experience. You're entrapping the unseen within a seen. The unphysical in a physical. The intangible reality in a tangible dimension. And this is what you're doing to yourself. Depending upon how repetitiously you think like this and how long you hold these thoughts in place, because it's trickling down and creating this chemistry and biology of feeling and emotion through you when your heart beats to keep this emotion and feeling in place, becoming a poison and a toxic to your and a toxin to your own chemistry of your own body. So you're a basic poison on two legs, poisoning yourself, a venom to yourself. This thing basically, it entraps your untrappable aspect. It becomes like a drug that's needed but not necessarily wanted. It's something that you need to validate yourself, but when it becomes a validated thing and you validate yourself, we don't necessarily want it because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. And you don't feel right within yourself, as yourself, of yourself, by yourself, within yourself, as yourself. You don't, and you know it. You know it. So you create your own schism in your own system, creating systematic, repetitious thinking patterns. Systematic, repetitious thinking patterns. And if you understand thought and thinking, thought is a thing which already happened in the past. It's just validating its own kind of slides. Thought after 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 thought. And it's going according to your experience, whether you were conscious of that experience or not. These are thoughts that pop in and out. But when you give attention to it, you give life to it. When you give attention to this thought, you turn this thought into a thinking pattern. You elongate that square into a rectangle. So So you're elongated something which only is supposed to be there for a brief moment in time. But now you turn that brief moment or that present moment into a damn commercial. And then you give more attention to it and you turn that commercial into a movie. And then you give more attention to it and you turn that movie into a biography. And you give more attention to it and you turn that biography into a documentary, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And time is just passing. And what you call time is just passing. And it's not time, it's deterioration of this body, decomposition of this body, the disappearing of this physical vehicle. This shit is disappearing. That's not time ticking away. That's disappearance in movement or in occurrence. You are disappearing. Why do you think your hair sheds and it falls off? You can brush your hair and still hair comes out. Your skin sheds. You think you're sweeping dust off the top of the lamp and the ceiling and the floor and off the cabinet and the kitchen. That's your skin. Your skin is shedding. Your hair is falling. This body is constantly in riddance of itself. It's constantly in a disappearing, a constant state of disappearance. Because the life force and the light force that you truly are within this vehicle is constantly pushing through this vehicle. Because you are truly nothing. Appearing as something and somebody. And that's how true it is, because the light is shining right now. This is the life force and the light force that you truly are. Amen Ra. Okay, so understand you're creating your own glitch in your own program. In actuality, literally, primarily, ultimately, you are a program. How are you creating your program? And within your program, are you creating any glitches within your program? Because that's what's gonna throw off the whole system. Which is why you become sick, you become ill. This is no rocket science. This is not something hard to understand or grasp. It's actually very simple. People say, oh, the spiritual thing and the spiritual understanding and the metaphysics. No, I can't get into that. That's too deep. I'm not into that kind of stuff. What are you talking about? No, it's actually very simple. How you're thinking is complicated. This is like ABC 1, 2, 3. Kindergarten school lunch. Taking a nap. How do you see this as being complicated? It's actually very practical. It's very fundamental. It's very basic. So I'm not being complicated. I'm actually being simple. It's very simple-minded. You're being complicated. You're trying to be complex using all these big words. No. Explain to me what spirituality by being simple, because it's all about simplicity and subtlety. Simplicity. Explain to me what spirituality is, or what the unseen force, by using words like rat, cat, bat, and hat. Give it to me in third grade, understanding and language. Because if you say that you're spiritual or that you're in tune and you can't explain to a 10-year-old, a scientist, and a spiritualist the same example and all three get it, then you're not saying nothing. Because a 10-year-old, a scientist, and a spiritualist have to all understand the one example which you're pushing forth, because it's that simple and it can be related on all planes of existence. And this is what this is based on. Okay? Basically, so that's another way of you denying to yourself that what you're visualizing, okay, this is pardon me, this is another line, or the next line, or the last doorway we're going to touch upon for the day. You deny to yourself that what you're visualizing is actually turning you on and getting you aroused in some way. But since you became territorial of that individual, which you're visualizing, you don't want to envision that situation because your selfish feelings are attached to that person's situation. Like when you visualize you're a woman or you're a man, having a beautiful sexual, pleasurable experience with someone else, a stranger. They're doing the same things to them and with them that they did to you and with you. And it seems so sexy. Such a turn on what they're doing to a stranger in your mind, which you have created, which may not even actually be true. But you visualize them and you animate them in your mind doing these things that they did to you and with you, to them and with them. And they're doing it in the same way they did it with them as they did it with you or to you. You can't stand to think of that. You know why? Because you became selfish. You think that she or he is your property. You think that she or he is your territory. But they're not. Never was. And never will be. And this is what you have to come into the realization and recognition of. And this is the truth. It's not something I'm making up. This is the truth. And if you don't realize it, it'll enforce itself upon you. And it'll keep repeating itself from mate to mate to mate to mate to partner to partner to partner to partner until you face, address, and confront that aspect within yourself in order to further yourself and enhance yourself in this reality that we call life. And you know, you can visualize her doing something to somebody else. You can visualize him doing something to somebody else. And they're doing it so good, so pleasurable in your mind. You're animating this experience, this movement, this situation. Maybe the most nastiest situation, most sexual, most sensual movements and action and animation and displaying within your mind. You create your own torture chamber to torture yourself. But you're only torturing yourself only based on the basis that you think you own them. You think that they're your property. You think that they're your territory, or you become territorial. That's selfish. And that's something that you got to check about yourself and within yourself. You became an enemy of the state. Well, what do you mean by that? You became an enemy to your state of mind. That's what enemy to state means. Enemy of the state, like the city and town. No. You become an enemy to your own state of mind. Be an ally. That's my best advice to you. That's what I recommend to you. That's what I suggest to you. Once again, amiasblu, as I am, as you are. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Until next time, I'll keep you envisioned. 1, 0.